Hello, 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 and welcome to a very special episode of Writing in the Tiny House, because it is June today. It is June 2nd. June 1st was yesterday, because that's how dates work. And unless you are living under a rock, you have noticed that everything in June turns to rainbows. Everything becomes prideful in this beautiful month of June. And this is the reason why I have decided to make this type of a special episode in June, because it represents a very big thing for me. For those of you who have been following along with Writing in the Tiny House, you know that January 1st was the day that I came out publicly as gay. And so June is actually my very first month celebrating Pride. And I'm 38. This is why I am taking a moment to make this very special episode of Writing in the Tiny House. Usually, this podcast is all about writing advice, and today it is more about freedom and expression and living your best life. And all of that completely ties into creativity and unleashing the gifts that are inside of you, but in a much more broad way. And so if you want to get back to the more specific tips and tricks of writing, please feel free to visit the other episodes. But there are going to be about 4 of these special episodes in the month of June, just because I am compelled to make them. So I lived a very specific lifestyle with rules and all of the things up until I was 30, where I gradually decided for myself what applied to me and what did not in regards of how I should live my life and how I shouldn't. And then in 2020, my ex-wife and I divorced. And so January 1st, 2022 is when I publicly announced that I was gay. And so what is Pride actually all about? What is this stuff all about? We hear about equal rights. We hear about love is love. We hear about living your true self and living your authentic life and loving yourself, loving your neighbor, and all of those other words. But Pride actually goes back to 1969 in New York, in Greenwich. And at that time, Greenwich had a large population of homosexuals. And one specific gay bar in the city called Stonewall was raided on June 28th, 1969 by the police. Now understand that prior to this, it was common for the cops to raid the known gay bars and arrest the practicing homosexuals. It happened a lot. But on June 28th, 1969, the homosexual population of Greenwich decided that they had had enough and they want to live their lives publicly without fear of being arrested and without fear of being terrorized by the cops. And so immediately after the police raid, they staged some of the very first protests for gay rights. And then 1 year later, on June 28, 1970, other cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco, in commemoration of the Stonewall Uprising that happened 1 year earlier, they held the first gay pride marches. And it was only a few years later that many, many of the other big cities caught on. And this is why Pride looks the way it does today. This is why we have the Pride marches. This is where all of that started. It started with the Stonewall Uprising. For many of us, and I am talking to my dear creative minds who are still struggling with who they are and struggling to figure out what life is all about and struggling to find out what this world has for them, or rather what they have to offer this world, I know that there are many creative minds who listen to this podcast and possibly follow me on Instagram and on Facebook who have an internal struggle and an internal conflict in regards to their sexual preferences and their sexual identity. Back in 1969, there was a very real external influence as to why people didn't want to come out as gay or lesbian. And The fact of the matter is, it wasn't legal and it wasn't safe. The police didn't treat people well who lived a homosexual lifestyle, and the public by and large didn't agree with it. Nowadays, there are still plenty of those prejudices, and there are still places in this world where it is not physically safe for a person to live out loud, or for a gay person to be gay publicly, and to be comfortable living a gay lifestyle. However, it has been 50-ish years, 53 years since the Stonewall Uprising, and society has come a long way in very many good ways. And so for many of us, the conflict is not so much fear of being harmed physically. The conflict, more than anything, is fear of disappointing. It's fear of losing family and being thrown out of a very present support system. I am here to tell you, my dear friends, my own experience. So I have met friends who became near and dear to me immediately, who were already active members of the LGBTQ communities. And they reached out to me and they welcomed me into their circle with open arms and have already volunteered to help in any way that they can. I have found support systems who reached out to me, but the caveat was I needed to come out first. And so this is my offer to you, my invitation to you. Come out wherever you are. It is so much better to live comfortably in your own skin. And you have so much beauty to give this world and so much positive change to bring about more progress in society and to challenge those antiquated ideals and those old thought patterns to bring about better things for you and for others like you, to bring about additional acceptance and learning and understanding so there can be more beauty and harmony in our communities. And I promise you, my friends, there is safety and there are friends already here. And all you need to do is make yourself known to us. So please, when you are ready, but make sure that you are taking steps to becoming ready, come out. Come out and join us this month. The entire world is celebrating equal rights and diversity of all shapes and sizes, and you can be a part of it if you just come out.